Welcome to the second tutorial of the Devious Dozen Archetypes. Today, in this tutorial, we are going to discuss the archetype called the escape artist. Who is the escape artist? The escape artist is an archetypal trait that's desperate to cut a hole in the side of the tent and flee the circus. The archetype has a superpower of premeditated escapism, where you are thinking about, planning and looking out for that escape route that will take you away from the problems in your life. The escape artist's motto is, "Screw this, I'm out of here," because escaping pain is the name of its game. The escape artist archetype is that urge, that strong urge to flee, to take flight away from situations, environments, events and people that we find intolerable and threatening. With the escape artist, we are looking to avoid the aspects of reality that we find stressful and unpleasant. We are looking to find relief from that which we find difficult to cope with. We are looking to avoid potential trouble, pain, or suffering. You will find that the escape artist is a part of you that is usually triggered when you feel entrapped. Entrapped by a life that has become too routine, too familiar, boring, dissatisfying, restrictive, impossible. We can be looking to escape responsibility, escape dangers and fears, escape from routine and work. Let's start with escaping responsibility. Being responsible is tough business. It means that we must be response-able, able to respond to people, situations and tasks that require our assistance, which often means that we need to put our own personal needs and desires to one side so that we can take care of the other, which requires making important decisions, sacrifices and being held accountable for our actions and taking control or being taken control of. With being response-able, there is nowhere to hide. We are facing the music. We are stepping up to the plate of life. We are taking on something that will require a commitment of our time, energy and effort. Interestingly, there are times when it's beneficial to not be responsible. Often we are faced with being responsible for irresponsible people, where we must take care of others who refuse to be accountable for their own needs. If, however, we continue to support these people, they never learn to fly on their own. So there comes a time that we must refuse to cooperate on those one-sided terms and leave them to their own devices so that they can learn from the consequences of their own actions or inactions. Sometimes in trying to satisfy expectations and demands, we can take on too much responsibility, more than we can cope with, which can lead to extreme amounts of stress and anxiety and resentment towards the objects of our commitments. Sometimes we may even take on responsibilities that we aren't competent and capable of fulfilling, which leads to the frustrations and failures that come from doing something without the knowledge and skills to see it through. There comes a point when we do need to be honest in what we can and cannot be responsible for. We do sometimes need to take time out so that we can mull things over, to assess where we can't commit or where we have already overcommitted to something that's beyond our capability. Then take necessary actions to scale back or withdraw altogether from those commitments. Whereas the detrimental impact of escaping responsibility is that the escape artist will often shy away from responsibilities without giving them a try. Taking on something different and challenging can seem like too much of a daunting experience because there is an underlying fear and insecurity of not being or knowing enough to get the job done. So the inclination is to run the other way. Yet it is only by stepping into that position of dreaded responsibility that we grow in courage and competency. It is when we take positions of responsibility that we step into a role that requires higher standards of conduct. Each time we shirk the responsibility of becoming someone with higher integrity and dependency, we negate the opportunity to grow and mature in character and skill. Escaping from responsibility is a childish and adolescent thing to do. We're not being held accountable for our actions. We are likely to stray off the path and do that which is inappropriate and unacceptable. We are likely to make mistakes, take shortcuts, and engage with wrongdoing. For when there is no one witnessing what we do, our standards are likely to drop. The escape artist is a trait that is hesitant towards making relational commitments. Relational commitments are scary because they mean that we must be held accountable, vulnerable, and open to the people that we're dealing with. We can be afraid of having our secrets, shames, and inferiorities discovered and judged. The escape artist will therefore avoid making new relationships or avoid revealing certain aspects of oneself to those that he or she has relations with. Without full commitment, there can never be a proper allegiance and integrity within relationships. There will always be hesitancy, uncertainty, and doubt between the two people. Now let's move on to escaping dangers and fears. Danger and fear are two peas in a pod. The escape artist trait is essential for being cautious and prepared to deal with both everyday and unexpected fears and dangers. The escape artist is a beneficial asset for helping us to escape dangers and fears. We do sometimes need to avoid those imminent threats and potential hazards because for the purpose of safeguarding our welfare, we do need to avoid and flee from situations and environmental risks and hazards that could potentially lead to some type of harm, injury, or loss. We also need to avoid the potential harms that could stem from confrontations with unstable, agitated, and angry people. Sometimes we do get caught up in major disagreements or arguments with people which can become too much to cope with or safely resolve. The instinctive urge to take flight, therefore, is needed so that we can find a safe and distant place to get some fresh perspective. With time to pause, reflect, and realise a different approach, we're then ready to deal with the situation with a fresh, rational, and composed response. But escaping dangers and fears also has a detrimental impact. Often it is the fears and dangers of the great unknown that we seek to avoid. We do tend to escape from dealing with or venturing into the unknown aspects of life, whether it be taking on a new job, visiting a new place, or approaching someone new, because we fear what might happen. We fear that there will be some type of loss, rejection, or failure. However, it is only when venturing into the great unknown that the dance of life takes place. We only come alive and grow in the places we do not know. The escape artist is likely to avoid dealing with important and ongoing relational conflicts and problems by always finding ways to divert from, ignore, and deny the current issues, and those disputes then keep on reoccurring. Leaving our relational issues unresolved means that this part of our life will always remain pending, like a conscious blight that won't go away, where the relationship itself has become this undeveloped, unhealed, and tainted part of our life. We can avoid important and sensitive issues in a relationship that are a danger and threat to the relationship itself. We can fear being exposed for something that we've done or for being someone that we're not. This means that there will always be a sense of guilt and disloyalty that we carry within surrounding that issue. However, what is kept in the dark tends to find its way into the light through various means of suspicious and uncharacteristic behaviours that can lead to a loss of confidence and trust in the other. Most relationships do start to dissolve without the solvent of trust. We then have escaping routine and work. Life can become too regimented and scheduled within a set routine of patterns, procedures, and habits. The human experience is one that needs balance between certainty and uncertainty. The laborious repetitions that are required to cultivate and maintain a sustainable life do need to be offset with periods of enjoying the variety, spontaneity, and adventures of life. Escaping routine and work is therefore a beneficial asset. When life has become imbalanced with too much routine and work, i.e. we are continually doing that which is intense, extreme, relentless, and repetitive, we can start to experience boredom, demoralization, stress, and fatigue. We can even start to loathe the life that we live and the person that we are, and resent those around us who seem to be living a more relaxed life. Here is where we need to embrace the escape artist. We need to plan and plot for regular times out throughout the day, week, month, and year to enjoy that which makes life worth living. We do need to structure a routine that has flexibility. Whenever things have become too monotonous, unvarying, predictable, uninteresting, and lackluster, the escape artist trait will break the pattern by urging us to do something completely new and exciting. This could mean fresh stimulus or minimal stimulus, which could mean diving into a new activity, meeting new people, or starting a different project. Alternatively, taking a break somewhere local or far away to disconnect the mind from all that is troubling and demanding. By escaping everything, to unplug from our digital devices and disconnect from social contact, we are able to reconnect with nature and give the mind some much needed peace. However, there is a detrimental impact of escaping routine and work. When escaping one arduous situation for another, i.e. when finding escapism from a family dispute by throwing yourself into the busyness of work, or escaping from an addictive habit by joining a gym to train relentlessly for 3 hours per day, is in effect exchanging one obsession for another. It's not really escapism, it's just trading one entrapment for another. Most people have unknowingly factored escapism into their life by finding distraction and entertainment within the digital reality. Playing video games, socializing online, or taking on those soapbox marathons. When in moderation, using digital stimulus as a form of escapism is harmless, until the digital stimulus becomes another form of entrapment. When compulsive and addicted to things that stimulate the mind, we then fall into the habitual trap of escaping the routines and tasks that help us to make progress in life. We can also start to neglect other areas of our life which are important, such as taking care of relationships, health, finances, and assets. What about escaping the truths about reality? The truths often reveal something that is unworthy, wrong, faulty, and unappealing. The truths threaten to expose the fictional or erroneous perception of reality that we've often crafted. We therefore tend to avert the truths about who we are as a person and others, and about reality itself. Believe it or not, there is a beneficial gain to be escaping the truths about reality. Sometimes the truth is too unbearable to know. The absolute truth of someone or something could afflict some kind of upset, conflict, or trauma. Like the saying goes, you can't handle the truth. And there are some moments in life that we do need to put the truth to one side until we find the appropriate time and way to deal with it. That said, let's look at the detrimental impact of escaping the truth. Whenever we escape the reality of oneself or the other, we are often not dealing with a part of our life that needs to be resolved and amended. The problem is, as long as we run from these issues, we never learn and grow from them. In fact, they become issues that show up in different areas of our life, or indeed a similar future situation. We then endure its unresolved psychological baggage, otherwise known as karma. Drugs and alcohol are the escape artist's #1 method of transcending a problematic and stressful truth. We all have our poison of choice. We are seeking that transcendental, altering effect of escaping the tensions of a troubled thought or feeling. Of course, that soothing and shifting effect is addictive, and so we become accustomed to that method of escapism. However, we are at risk of the physical and psychological damage that comes from the overuse or abuse of chemical toxins. So, let's summarize the escape artist archetype. In today's stressful and busy world, where we are committed to extreme schedules and overloaded with stimulations, we've morphed from human beings into human doings. We therefore need to reconnect with and nurture the being part of human. Without adequate time and space for rest, recuperation, and recreation, we fall into the quick fix habits of pleasurable escapism to counteract those negative feelings of being stressed, miserable, and fatigued. We therefore need to trade the toxic escapisms for healthy escapisms. Rather than use or abuse quick fix chemical stimulants, junk food, or digital distractions as a way to escape the way we feel, we need time out to recuperate and reassess those problematic situations to understand why we are trying to escape them, so that we can reflect and distinguish where we have fallen into some type of stressful entrapment. We do need regular escapism from the regular aspects of life. We do need escapism from all forms of entrapment. Entrapment is that sense of endurance, of having to do this, or when it's over, then I can rest, that we experience when trying to get through something that's unpleasant and painstaking. If that dreadful feeling of entrapment has become a regular theme in your life, it's a sign that you are living imbalanced. However, it is often the things that we continually escape from and avoid the most, which are the things that we need to face the most. These would be the difficulties, the insecurities, the fears and the unknowns that if we conquered them would mean that we experience personal growth and achievement. If we continually escape from that which is challenging and demanding, then we are to miss out on the opportunities to sharpen our skill sets and strengthen our character. The more we avoid, the less we grow. If we are continually escaping from the problems of self or lifestyle circumstances, although we may get temporary relief, the unresolved problems, they never disappear. They are usually repressed within the unconscious aspect of the mind and then become involuntary triggers that keep showing up in our life. The more we find ways to escape reality, the more we avoid people, problems, and disconnect from the external world. Our world starts to shrink in quality and scope, and we can find ourselves stuck within the little world of me that exists only inside the head. Being alone inside the mind is where escapism has become mental isolation. We are feeling alone with our thoughts. Nowadays, some would say that we do escape from reality by escaping into the fantasy world within. That most people have constructed an alternative reality inside the mind. Imaginary realities are harmless and they can be creatively utilized to manifest a new life in the real world. It is when we choose to spend more time mentalizing reality than actualizing reality that we can start to live the inactive, stagnant and redundant lifestyle, trapped within the limitations of what we think. The escape artist also rides tandem with the fantasist archetype, where one triggers the other. Escaping from undesirable situations is almost always followed by a strong desire to soothe with some type of pleasurable fantasy. A strong desire to have something better or different is almost always followed by a compulsion to escape the status quo of now. I will finish this tutorial by saying that we do need to learn the discernment of when is the appropriate time to escape from situations. What is the best type of escapism that is needed? When is the right time to return back? What do we need to stop escaping from and start facing? And when we do have good escapism strategies, they become an important asset to help us counteract a lifestyle that is too extreme, overwhelming, or mundane. However, when escapism supersedes engaging with life in a productive and rewarding way, the solution has then become the problem. So, give some consideration as to where you feel the escape artist is an archetypal trait that's active in your life. Where is this archetype causing a detrimental impact to you? Where could this archetype be more of a benefit to you? Once you are finished learning about the escape artist, it's time for you to move on to the next tutorial where we explore the characteristic profile of the false victim.